Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Case study time. Welcome to another case study with Comex and Marc Zander, CEO and partner from Africon, a management consultancy, Comex customer. It's an independent consulting firm with a super interesting focus on Africa. So we're super excited to hear about that, especially because you're management consulting, complex deals, services. It's very exciting how you guys doing your sales journey. So shall we kick off, Marc? Welcome.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Cool. So Marc, I'll just quickly kick off and then we give it over to Chris. What we always interested in is basically the transformation that you did with Comex. And I was actually wondering, let's start from the beginning. So how did you guys do actually lead generation before engaging with us? And what were you busy with back then?
Yeah, I would say our lead generation has been the same as with many other consulting companies. We've used different channels, right? So at the beginning, we were very much attending conferences, we were going to trade fairs, we were sending cold emails, we were obviously using different social media aspects, LinkedIn, whatever, try to be present in the market, etc., etc. But we did realize that the proactive approach to us was pretty limited, right? From LinkedIn and from whatever we had, it was pretty few. So we started with cold emailing many years back and sent a lot of cold emails to clients, obviously, which we tried to generate our own by research of finding the right guys and finding the right companies. But we had a quite good mix from the analysis we had before. So we had people whom we met at trade fairs, who we met at conferences, and who were personal friends. So it is and was still a great mix of various ways of how we found clients.
Got it. Okay. And if you think about, like, we always hear that there's always a limitation on how consultancy firms actually can scale that. So what would you say were the main bottlenecks that you encountered doing all of those activities? What held you back to take this further?
Yeah, the funny thing is sales were generated from 3 colleagues of mine and myself. And we realized that cold emails was obviously one of the channels, right? So the question is, where were the channels we could scale? And probably going to more trade fairs was quite difficult. Attending more conferences was pretty difficult. So we identified the sectors where we can really do something. And besides being social media active and spreading more the message out there, probably working with ads or some others, cold email was something where we knew this is a factor where we can scale. Because before we were working with Comex, we were probably shooting out about 80 to 100 mails a year. Pretty focused, but we knew that is one of the areas we can probably scale most and save time on finding the companies, identifying the right guys, getting the email done, etc., which is probably took us, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes per cold email. And here we knew that we have room for improvement.
Got it. Okay. We hear that a lot, right? Because the research has to be done. You go on multiple platforms. How did you guys do it, actually? Did you guys do it yourself, all the research?
Yeah, some years back, we identified the perfect client for us, right? And in a company who is focused on Africa, we know that most of our clients need to be internationally minded, need to be in other markets, need to have already some experience probably in the market, or understand that there is a potential in the African region. These clients are mostly at the moment multinationals to large SME companies in Germany or in Europe, where our focus was and is. And we checked from different articles, which are the top companies, we checked their websites, and most of the time you see that a mid-sized company of a certain size is active in Brazil, Russia, India, China, wherever they're already in emerging markets. But if you look at the map, world map, you can see that some have an office in South Africa, probably some have in Northern Africa, but the rest is completely blank. So we knew we need to target these clients who are looking at more on the African region. And that's not easy, right? So checking which are the top companies, checking who are the multinationals, checking who are the right guys. And yes, that was the work we've done before sending these cold emails.
And that is what we learn every time with clients, right? Without the customer persona, it's going to be very, very tough to focus your marketing activities. Would you subscribe to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've done a persona analysis and we've done a company analysis. And then we also check which are the most attractive markets to be operating in Africa already, right? So we have, I don't know, 1.2 billion people on the African continent. There are about 400 million consumers. So we knew the consumer business is big. So we addressed consumer companies. We know there is a big upgrowing demand for packaging solutions. So we addressed a lot of packaging companies. So yes, besides the fact that we identified people, we also identified the right companies, because some other companies are probably at the beginning stage when it comes to Africa, and we knew it won't make sense to address them.
Got it. Okay, cool. What we hear a lot from consultancy firms, and similar to you guys as well, that consultancy sales is people sales, is partner sales, right? We hear this question a lot. And I'm wondering, because since you guys actually took a quite modern approach of really identifying the target persona and not only going via network, I'm wondering, how does the sales process look for you guys? Who does what, and who does qualification, who makes the deals? How do you separate the work for you guys? How do you organize?
I mean, in the past, it was, as I said, probably 3 to 4 team members, right? So the team members who were longer with us, who had an understanding about how it goes, we're all kicking off the sales process. We were attending conferences, going to trade fairs, sending emails, doing the qualification, etc., etc. And that led to, let's say, a positive reply. Now, this positive reply was then taking to the person who is in charge for a practice. So if we talk packaging, we have someone who's in charge for packaging, automotive, etc., etc. And these particular person, who is a senior manager within the company, was now working on the proposal, worked on the proposal and sent it to the clients. Or we had a meeting with the client who said, hey, Africon, who are you guys? I mean, they probably know McKinsey, they know BCG or whatever, but they didn't know us. So they were like, can you come and pass by and just introduce yourself so we know you're for real? So, I mean, it's a very funny process. And secondly, we see that a lot of companies ask us to meet their staff in Africa because they believe we don't have offices in Africa. So we go and meet them. We create that comfort of being in the market, of having understanding. And, you know, I myself, I do Africa for the past 20 years. So meeting larger organizations with a small company as we are, we definitely have to convince them in a one-to-one meeting. So most of our clients, after they got a bit of an interest, they obviously invite us for a meeting. We have a one-to-one, and then we are in the position to make a proposal.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So it goes from like identification, first contact, then figuring out the way how to establish the rapport and the trust, and then getting into proposal stage where you then probably feel the leverage and can make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Now, fast forward, you did that. You figured that there would be other solutions to probably scale this. What would you say before starting with comics? What sparked your interest and motivation to get into our pipeline assessment and actually have a look?
I think we had the moment where we learned that whenever we do a lot of sales, about 3 to 6 months later, we generate projects.
Right.
Now, what happened with Africon was we generated a lot of we did a lot of sales and we generated a lot of projects. While we were handling a lot of projects, we suddenly realized, oh, sales had been gone down. So we then realized that by the time projects were over, we were like, oh, okay, but who's doing sales now? So we were looking at opportunities on where we can have continuous sales process, even though our team is busy with managing projects. And yes, we did assign time for sales, even though we were handling projects, but that was obviously less, right? So we were looking at how can we continuously drive sales on a permanent basis so that by the time we were handling projects, there is not too much time we need to spend in identifying, writing code meds and so on.
We hear this actually all the time with service businesses. It's kind of like the chicken and egg discussion. So once you've made a lot of sales, you're in projects, you want to deliver them well, right? But then your pipeline cracks. And there's actually the issue that all of you guys also have to deliver, right? So it's always this resource issue that you had. But that's actually interesting. I would like to hear from you. How important would you say, even as a consultancy, is it then to have control over your sales pipeline?
I mean, it's key. I mean, to us, it's absolutely key. And because the funny thing is, obviously, you will have to, I mean, once you've sparked the interest, you will have to undergo through the whole process, right? And I need to say to some companies, digitization or whatever might be a key priority. We do realize that Africa, not with everyone, is a key priority, right? So people are like, okay, Africa is interesting. Africa might be the market of the future. We want to know more about it, but actually, yeah, that is something we can do tomorrow. So we don't see that the pressure on Africa at the moment or is still high. So we need, once we spark that interest and once we have the sales pipeline, we need to follow through until the moment the client really makes a decision. So having the sales pipeline under control is probably a very important factor. Secondly, we offer something which is very rare. So not many companies offer Africa consulting. So what we sometimes realize is that by the time we write to a client, the client suddenly says, oh, I didn't know that exists. That's cool. I know there is a lot of headhunters or a lot of M&A or a lot of whatever, but we didn't know that there is a consulting company with sole focus on Africa. So let's try to further engage, but who is the right person to engage with them? So the process is a little bit more complicated because we enter with something where a lot of companies tell us, we don't even know who's doing Africa. We don't even know who is in charge for the new market development. So having that under control is very important for us.
Cool, got it. So that means you had looked at solutions, and then what was the reason you decided actually for Comex? Because you could also do that, you could hire a sales team, right? You could run ads. Like, what was the initial reason you decided to go with Comex?
I mean, we did a clear analysis on what we're going to be doing, right? And then we had a meeting, a sales meeting and a workshop, and we identified various sales channels. How does the sales channel work? Pros, cons, where are we strong, where not, etc. And we did realize that cold emails were always a factor with which we could generate sales, but we had the feeling we are not doing enough. So having identified whatever other areas of where we need to improve, cold email, or let's say addressing the client either via phone, via email or whatever, would be a read or an area where we can really improve. So by having that in mind, I need to say we never found quite the right solution, right? We were talking to people who do phone sales. We were talking to people who were, also doing cold emails. We always had that in mind, but we never really, how would I say, found the perfect solution until we then got the Comex email and we're like, okay, who are these guys? Let me check it out, etc., etc. And then we did realize that might be an opportunity which fits to our problem we had.
Cool, got it, awesome. Okay, thanks so much for this one. We're now moving to onboarding, so over to you, Chris.
Yeah, perfect. So let's move forward. When you became Comex clients, like how was the onboarding for you? Also, how much approximate resources did you need to get Comex started and running?
We assigned 3 people for Comex, right? So one was me, who was overseeing the project from a partner perspective. We had one of our sales colleagues, Eric, who was handling the onboarding calls and who set up our internal structure to be working smoothly with Comex, right? To how do I get the blacklist done? How I get the list done? How do I log on to the email, etc., etc. And then we assigned at the beginning one person in our IT department who stated, okay, he was like the backup and helping that everything runs smoothly. Now, especially in the onboarding phase, we made sure that we have continuous calls with Comex. You made sure you have enough calls with us to get this done. And then I would say the resources at the beginning were obviously a bit more. Now, as we are fully in the process, it's obviously less.
Yeah, great. How was approximately collaboration? You were in contact in the onboarding with our customer success. How would you describe the collaboration with the customer success and with us?
In terms with Comex, I would say from the beginning, I think the working relation was really good, right? So everything was clear to us. We were guided through the process quite well. What I liked most was I could ask all the stupid questions I had in terms of how do I improve here, how do I improve there? And I need to say, before we worked with Comex, we also had our emails, our cold emails, our text we believe was the best. And creating a mixture between the experience comics had and what we had, I think was very important. And I think what we liked most, that we tried different approaches, right? So we didn't say, let's take one approach and let's see that this works, but we probably started with finally 4 approaches on different campaigns. And I think having had the exchange and learning from comics versus what we do and what we are best in, I think brought a very good combination of finding the right way of working together.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. We see that with a lot of clients. A/B testing, that's what you were referring to, right? Is very, very important. Finding out what's the right method and the right communication. Like also during the onboarding, what did you perceive as the highest value that you got in getting comics started in outbound?
I mean, for me, I mean, with us Africon, we always try to create a wow effect with our clients. So I'm somewhere thinking, if I work with an external company, what's the wow effect they're creating for me? And I need to say, the beautiful part was that very quickly I saw mails coming in to me after a couple of days saying, yes, I'm interested to talk to you about an Africa strategy, and why don't you call me, or why don't you send me more? And I suddenly realized that once you increase simply the number of emails you're sending on a continuous basis, obviously you suddenly realize, yeah, there are a lot of people who say, sorry, Africa is not my thing, or we don't need it, or whatever. But when we hit the right guys with the right Africa story, I think we really hit the right person. And currently, I think we as Africon, I would make a guess, but we're probably sending about 100 emails a week. And that really returned quite an interesting numbers. That was the first one. And secondly, I think what amazed me as well was that clients I didn't have on my radar replied positively to what we are saying. So I had a couple of clients saying, yes, we are very interested, let's talk. And I was like, wow, I probably wouldn't have written to them, but just by the pure size of addressable markets, it suddenly made me think like, wow, there's something coming back I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, right. I remember in the onboarding we advised you to extend a bit the target market, right? To find that out. Yeah. Let's move more towards results. I would be very interested in what was when we started with comics. Like, how would you describe the results? Like, what has also changed from before comics and after comics?
I mean, the very first thing is, I need to say the motivation of some of our employees has increased. Because sending and identifying clients on a weekly basis is pretty frustrating, right? Because you're writing and you're writing and you're writing, and you suddenly realize that out of all the work you have done, one has probably replied positively, but the rest is like, whoa. So people were like, I could spend my time better than writing cold emails. So it was formerly a time where people were kind of forced to write cold emails. Now that was taken away, right? So people were like, okay, I can concentrate on that, what I really want to do. I want to do projects. I want to create a value for people in Africa, etc., etc. Right. So motivation has increased. Secondly, we obviously had the opportunity in sending out much more, which was really great, and led to the fact that out of the many emails we sent, a couple of emails were like very positive, and we didn't have that before, right? So if you shoot like, I don't know, 10 a week and you get like 0, then this week's like super frustrating. Now you shoot 100, and out of the 100, you probably find 6 saying, hey, yes, we are very interested. But having not wasted resource or the costs or whatever makes you feel so positive about that. And I need to say formally, approximately 20 to 25% came from cold emails in our business. This is, as we're not working that long together, but at least we have 2 clients recently who signed up with us, and they were obviously out of the comics list. And so I would say by the end of 2019, when we review our sales conversion rates, we will probably see that suddenly cold emails will be far higher than it used to be before.
No. Cool. Could you and I don't know, it's fine when you have approximate numbers, like when you would have gone with your traditional methods, achieving the same results, how much more time, people, money would you have had to invest to achieve the same results?
Yeah, it depends, because funny enough, formerly we were like, oh, we are all into projects, and suddenly sales were dropping down, right? So if I would have continuously done that, I would probably had to have people working 18 hours or 20 hours, because they would have to do that on an extra thing. So, but I would guess we would, in terms of simple time resources, because now we are paying comics a certain amount, which we didn't pay before. So the certain amount we pay was obviously extra on our cost basis.
Right.
However, on the other side, we could reduce the times people were actually working on sales. And if I make a calculation that, I would have probably reduced costs to a third of what we had before.
Yeah, perfect. That's very good. That's very good numbers also, yeah. Like last question, how likely would you recommend comics to someone else? And why would you tell that person it is valuable to work with us?
Probably I have recommended comics already about a couple of times. Why would I do that? Because you are in no way in the position to reach such an audience if you would be doing it on your own. I mean, no company has the ability to send out so many mails to an addressed target group. So I would probably recommend comics quite strongly, because it has helped us to increase sales. And funny enough, we are a consulting company on our own, and we're trying to increase sales for other people. So we know on what we're talking about, but it really did help. And we had, after the 3 months, I think we are now working together, we already could close 2 deals, which in consulting is quite fast and quite good. So we're looking to more to come. And so I would most probably recommend comics quite strongly.
Perfect. But it's also well done on you guys, right? So you seem your closing mechanisms seem to be the right one, right? It seems you create the rapport, you know what to do if you ever get a lead, right? And that's something people shouldn't underestimate, right? Like that's super important.
And the funny thing with us is no one knows our service, right? I said it earlier, but no one knows who we are. No one knows we exist. So spreading out the message to companies worldwide, or at the moment Germany and Austria and Switzerland, what we are currently focusing on, is something we could have never done before. I mean, sending out about 100 emails or more per week is, even though people say, at the moment, I'm not interested. I mean, I don't know how many times I get that answer, right? At the moment, I'm not interested. But if only out of these, at the moment, I'm not interested, which is probably 60-70% of the answers, let's say 5% will come back in future because they were brave enough to save my mail and say, okay, whenever Africa comes up in our organization, and we're ready to do that. Right. I see more and more coming within the next years, because I believe that, as I said, if only 5% save my contact and would probably come back to us, we're going to be seeing a pull in 2020, 2021 or later.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
It's like those cumulative effects, we believe, and we teach as well, on a healthy pipeline that you build over time, right? And actually, there's one more question we normally ask. It's like, so why do you think it's important to start with this rather sooner than later, right? Do you feel those cumulative effects?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I said to my colleague the other day, if I would have met comics about 3 years earlier, I would have probably signed up with you earlier, because that would have saved us all the cold emails and stuff. So, but sometimes it needs the right moment to meet, and it needs the right time. So yeah, but exactly that's how it is, right? So we did the mistake of not having a continuous sales pipeline in the past, and we did learn from that. And I think at least the comic solution is one solution to the problem.
Yeah,
cool. Awesome.
Just the last thing, like maybe a remark, because like in the operations and customer success, we see loads of different cases, and what's outstanding with you guys is basically your value proposition to your clients, right? Just curiosity-wise, how many competitors are out there that do our Africa strategy?
Yeah, we do see three different groups of competitors. One is the big ones, the big McKinseys, the BCGs, the Ernst & Young, and whoever, who are obviously delivering market research, etc., to large multinationals.
Right.
Then we do have a small group, in Europe at least, who have the size of us, which is approximately 15 to 20 staff members, mostly based in Africa, delivering solution only locally. So we do see the middle class group as a very small group. And then we do see that a lot of single consultants who are either African origin or whatever believe they can do the same. So at the moment, competition is still very, very few, but we do see that it's a blue ocean. We do see that more and more people are looking at that. And when we set up in 2011, there was no one, not even McKinsey or BCG or anyone was doing Africa. We were really the only ones, but yeah, things changed. And but due to the history we have and the long-standing relations we have already in Africa, probably we are a bit ahead of the competition.
Yeah. How do you communicate? Like, what would you communicate to a prospect or a potential customer? Why are you special, and what's your superpower, basically? Why are you better than others?
I mean, the superpower with us is local, right? So about 95 to 98% of the project is delivered locally. Yeah. Local contacts, local discussion, local cultural input, local understanding about projects. And what we see is that companies do strategies with big consulting companies, trying to understand the overall market. And then suddenly out of the high level information, which is now brought down to a sales department, they don't have any clue what to do, right? Oh, you guys have a 300 million market in Africa. Okay, but that's where it stops, right? But people have spent a lot of money for the 300 million as a number. Now, where does Africon come in? We identify the local projects, the local partners, the local market, the local understanding, and probably advise the client far better. That's one. And two, we do help people to implement the business locally, which means after they have gone to a market like Nigeria, Kenya, whatever, we help them to create first sales locally with our staff and advise them as long as they're actually doing sales. Because a lot of people start the Africa thing, go to Africa and suddenly realize it's not as easy as we thought. And it's funny, these markets and these guys don't reply and whatever. But here we give them guidance until first sales are generated. And it's obviously reducing risk, costs, and time for our clients when they enter the African markets.
That's like a very niche value proposition you have to your customers, right? To summarize that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. This is, yeah, perfect. Philip, do you have any more questions?
I think that just one, because we always ask this. It's like, so for companies in your situation, so not such a big, first of all, consulting, right? Low service business. And we see a lot that they're struggling with sales because it's normally not organizations that have massive resources and massive sales departments, right? Then their services are always different. So it's very hard to package product. Is there anything you can recommend for companies of your size, 15, 20, 25 employees, not many resources? How should they start when they're thinking about professionalizing their sales effort? Like where should they get going?
I mean, to me, first of all, identifying the right clients, right? So I've identified the right clients. That's number one. Secondly, I need to identify who's the guy who takes a decision in that client company. Right. That is number two. Number three, how do we reach these clients, right? I mean, how do we create this attention? And being small, you're nowhere. I mean, right. Who has seen our website? We probably have about 100 visitors a day. That's it, right? Out of the world out there. So how do we create attention? And by creating attention, you need to blow the whistle as much as you can. And having thousands of different ways, probably the cold email can be one, right? So, so understanding these areas where you need to concentrate on, and we have probably 7 or 8, right? Conferences, cold emails, going to a trade fair, and so on and so on. Where's your key element of creating sales? What brings you the quickest return? And I think having that under control is good. And probably a third one is assign people directly to sales, and don't put them into projects once they're won. So having a dedicated person who probably does about 80 to 90% sales and does not deliver projects to client, I think that's the most important part when it comes to consulting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we believe. Don't hire too quickly. Some people hire too quickly, then the team gets big, and once you have the situation that projects are not coming in as quickly as you see, then you suddenly have a lot of cost bases, which
right.
Yeah, we agree on that one, definitely.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Marco, awesome. Thanks so much for the insights. Super
Yeah.
interesting.
Super interesting. Thanks so much.
No problem.
See you soon, Marco.
See ya.